Elon Musk, you retweeted this talking about how you don't see Christian phobia or Hindu phobia or Sikh phobia. So why is it that islamophobia exists? Interesting, as if it's the fault of Islam that people are irrationally afraid of Islam. That's what a phobia is. It's an irrational fear. Now, let's use the same logic that you tried to use right there and talk about anti-Semitism. Or you don't want to do that, right? Because if you say, I've never heard of anti-Caucasianism or anti-Mongolianism. I have heard of anti-Semitism, so it must be the fault of the Jewish Semitic people. Then you would be apologizing, wear a yarmulke, kissing up, because you know you couldn't get away with that. Why don't you use the same logic with anti-Semitism as you do with Islamophobia? Because you know you're using a double standard. Islamophobia doesn't exist because of Islam's actions. It's an irrational fear. That's why it's a phobia. Elon Musk, Stop retweeting this Islamophobic stuff. Go back to building electric cars or rockets to go to Mars. I'm sure you'll be liked better on Mars, but retweeting this kind of debunked stuff about grooming gangs and prostitution in the UK being run by Muslims is absolute nonsense. You know, statistically, the vast majority of grooming gangs, prostitution, all that goes on is white, British nationals that have nothing to do with immigrants or Muslims. Trying to find these few stories by irreputable sources and retweeting them to put an image forward is dishonest and not up to your caliber. You need to think. If you want to talk about stats, the countries with the highest prostitution rates in the world, all of them non-Muslim countries, and your favorite new destination, India, is very high up on that. And the countries with the highest rates of rape and sexual molestation of women, all of them non-Muslim countries. And once again, India is very high up on that rate. So don't talk about Muslim countries, because Muslim countries have the least rape, the least prostitution in the world. Go look up your stats. Some of the safest countries to live in the world: Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, Bahrain, Oman, all of these are Muslim countries. So if you want to have a better future for the West, let's work together as Muslims, non-Muslims, living in the same place with facts, with working for a brighter future, and stop this hate mongering.
And in the last few weeks, we've seen a resurgence of blatant lies, misrepresentations, fear mongering amongst the Western masses about our faith and about our tradition. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran. Allah mentions it in the Quran 1,440 years ago. Allah said, وَلَتُبْلَوُنَّ فِي أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ. You are going to be tested in your wealth and in your lives and families. وَلَتَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا أَذًى كَثِيرًا. And you're going to hear a lot of irritation, a lot of nuisance. You're going to hear painful things from those outside of our faith. They're going to say things about you that are not true. They're going to lie. They're going to smear. They're going to stereotype. They're going to caricature. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. You must be patient and you must have taqwa of Allah. That is the essence of righteousness. So, my dear brothers and sisters, what can we do? And what are some of the manifestations of this reality? And what is our role and responsibility? These are some of the topics that inshaAllah ta'ala we're going to be addressing. As for its manifestation, subhanAllah, one of the most obvious manifestations is the media representation, or I should say the misrepresentation of our faith. The creating of stereotypes, the creating of caricatures, the creating of fear-mongering. Out of nothing, an entire controversy is created. Just look at, for example, the simple reality of one of the leaders of our lands, the Muslim Prime Minister of Syria, when he refused to shake hands with a female politician. How much the media went into full-time overdrive, creating, fomenting hatred. And yet, subhanAllah, they're talking about women's rights. They're talking about the fact that this is a man who's not shaking hands with a woman. How about the previous leader whom they themselves supported and whose own forces perpetrated the most heinous violations against tens of thousands of women? all of this is silent. Not a single word to that reality. But when a Muslim man, out of his own akhlaq and dignity, does not want to touch another woman, an entire firestorm is created. Look at what is happening right now on social media. One of the most, or maybe even the wealthiest person alive today, who owns various social media platforms, that person, the multi-billionaire, is now actively engaged in spreading lies about our religion, fear-mongering, not just in America, across the globe, tweeting and retweeting absolute lies about religion of Islam and about Muslims. The reality is that Muslims in Western majority lands are no more or less guilty than any other faith of the crimes of the most of mankind. And yet, the Western media portrays Muslims as being disproportionately responsible for the crimes against other people. One of the things happening in Europe, many of us in America are not aware, and that's good for us, we're not aware, but in Europe there is this fomenting going on of Muslim gangs that are taking advantage of other people, that are taking vulnerable women and grooming them, the grooming gangs of England. This is front page news for the last 3 weeks, and tweets are being perpetrated, blatant lies that Muslims are disproportionately responsible for grooming young underage women. And the fact of the matter is that this is a blatant lie. There's not a shred of truth. Statistics say that Muslims are just as much guilty as their percentages in the broader society. No more, maybe even a little bit less. Yes, there are bad Muslims out there. We are not disproportionate doing crimes against the rest of mankind. But what is being portrayed, Muslims exclusively are at the forefront. So often, blatant news is created where there's not a shred of evidence. For example, 2 weeks ago, a person who was born in a Muslim family of a Muslim heritage created or did a act in Germany, and he drove into a crowd and killed many people without any verification, without any background. The fact that that person had a Muslim name, immediately a story was created. Terrorist attack, this happens, that happens. Turns out this person, not only was he not a Muslim, he was a murtad, he was in fact an Islamophobe. This person was in fact a Zionist, and the reason why he attacked other people in Germany is that he said, you guys are too soft against Muslims, you guys are not harsh enough against Muslims. And as soon as that manifesto came, as soon as all of those tweets came, the person who owns that social media platform deleted his account so that you cannot see the background of this person. And again, last week there was an attack in New Orleans. We still don't understand who the person was, what his motivation was. Fact of the matter is, there are a lot of unanswered questions because this person is unknown in the Muslim community. But just because they have a Muslim name, all of a sudden a story is created. Nobody challenges. We have no idea of this reality. And all of us have to somehow collectively respond as if we are responsible, even if one of our own did a crime. Why is it that when mass shootings take place, and invariably mass shooters are always coming from the larger demographics of white Caucasian males? Why is it when a mass shooting takes place, the rest of the male Caucasians don't have to make a disclaimer, oh, we have nothing to do with that person? And yet when it is a Muslim, all of a sudden we are collectively made guilty. And it goes on and on. So without a doubt, we are facing yet another wave of Islamophobia. And Allahu A'lam, what's going to happen with the current presidency and what is going to happen in the next few years. And all of this leads to actual hate crimes. Alhamdulillah, in this last year, not as many violent crimes as happened in the previous years. However, multiple agencies have reported that minor crimes, nuisances, irritations, or pushing or shoving have increased against Muslims in over 700%. And as for violent, only a few cases across this country. In Canada, multiple incidents have happened. Across Europe, this is happening as well. And this is leading to legislation. Multiple countries, not our country because we do have a constitution that makes that difficult, but other countries are getting involved in actually legislating specific acts that are meant to make it difficult for Muslims to live their lives in Western lands. So with all of this, brothers and sisters, what must we do? First thing, and this is the most difficult, and this is a very awkward topic, before we seek to try to push back, understand why this is happening. Understand, because without understanding, without having the context, without at least putting yourselves in the shoes of the other, no matter how awkward that is, you will not effectively be able to counter the rise of misinformation. So there are multiple motivations why Islamophobia finds such large traction in the Western world. There are multiple psychological realities, and when I state them, I'm not justifying, I'm simply asking us to understand why. Please understand, I'm not defending, a'udhu billah. I'm trying to make us understand some of the fear, some of the unknown, some of the stereotypes that find traction. They actually have human emotions that we can empathize with. This is not to justify, but you're not gonna defend, and you're not gonna be able to make yourself somebody that is fully human in their eyes until you know why they feel this way. Some of their motives are totally understandable, and of those motives is the fear of the unknown. This is a logical and rational fear. They don't know us. We haven't interacted with them. And so they believe the lies that they are fed. Not everybody who says something Islamophobic actually has genuine hatred in their heart. It could be misunderstanding. It could be fear. It could be that they want to protect their own families and their own societies, and they have been told a lie. And if you come and you act arrogant, if you come and you act harshly, if you come and you don't have an ounce of empathy that they might actually have a legitimate misunderstanding, you will only validate their stereotype. You will only affirm what their misunderstanding is. So understand that misrepresentation of Islam and limited interactions that many non-Muslims have with us, it allows them to feel this type of misunderstanding against us.